Okay, let me get this recorded. So let's share screen. Make sure I'm on the right one. Okay, so we are going to do lab 6 now. I know some of you are still working on the other labs, but we're going to spend a little bit of time. This lab is fairly fast, so after, if you want to work on the other ones, that's okay. So we are using Autopsy. This is one of my favorite forensic toolkit. It has most of the things that you need in one shot. It's user-friendly. We are going to use bulk extractor in the future. I was going to use bulk extractor for this one, but since we already use Pro Discover, you're going to see some similarity in this toolkit. So the area that we want to focus on today is going to be keyword search. And this is going to allow you to look for a certain type of, you can create a list of keywords. So for example, you can create a list of email addresses. And so for today, we're going to focus on file system keywords because we're going to analyze a Windows image and be able to extract some file information from there. It's also very helpful in the case where if you want to look for documents, email files, and other areas. So it also has the capability to do browser forensics. So you can use the toolkit more than what we're just using it for today. So I give you some information on how it's able to find the string from the keyword that you had set up or when you do the lab, and then be able to identify the files that's related to that particular type of text or the string that you have put in for the criteria. And so for the analysis mode, when you're using Autopsy, it tells you that you can do a dead analysis is when we examine data from the image of the system. We don't always look at, we don't examine the system, right? We take an image of that system and we would do the analysis. So Autopsy, which in the back, you're going to see this kit being incorporated. But this is often used for a lab type of environment. You can also use different type of file format from other software or other tools, okay? The live analysis is when you are looking at doing the analysis as the incident is happening. So a lot of the majority of the time after the fact, that's dead analysis, right? Live analysis is when things are occurring and you're evaluating at that particular time. So on that live system is when you are using live analysis. And so for this particular exercise, we are going to use keyword search, and you can create as many keywords as you wish. And so for, in order to install Autopsy, if you look at their documentation, you need to install Java package because it does use Java to build the application. And I had already installed it for you. But when you put in the string, it is an ASCII encoding string. And what that does is it creates, right, a filter. When you're already familiar with grep from Linux, so grep allows you to filter based on the regular expression. So regular expression in programming, that would be like things that we would look for a certain amount of characters, or we can look at a certain pattern. For example, like Social Security would have so many digits, so you can use regular expression to control that. So what that does is whatever the criteria that you set, it's going to create that regular expression and it's going to filter based on the search that you give it. We need a drive from the chair, okay? All right. For documentation of your keyword search from Autopsy, you can click on the link. So we need to access the drive, and the folder that you're going to pull from is going to be, I copy it to my desktop. So you can use the clone CIS27A forensic or the CIS27A forensic VM fall 2023. Either the clone one or the non-clone one, that's fine. And then you are going to add that virtual machine, and I wrote that down for you here. So use VirtualBox, add the virtual machine, and then be able to run it. You're gonna log in using the password CIS27A. I added some of the things for the instruction because I indicate that if you're using Microsoft Edge browser on the virtual machine, it might block this website, so you would want to install Chrome, and I will do that with you now. So here is my Windows VM, and I already logged in. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I did have it recorded. And so I'm gonna go ahead and download Chrome. I should have done this before I copy your virtual machine for you. So we can download our Chrome. Let me see if I have network connections on this. My student, they were using this to change the IP. Okay, so now I should be able to have network connectivity. And then we're just gonna go ahead and download Chrome. So it's best if you want to use Chrome, you can download and install Chrome on the VM for the website to download your image. So we had loaded the virtual machine, okay? And then we have logged in. The virtual machine you're using is the Forensic VM Fall 2023. If you're using your laptop, you will likely have to, if you're using your own virtual machine, I should say, you would need to install Autopsy. You can find a website. Okay, so I had downloaded Chrome, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and allow my firewall here. So click yes. And it's going to take a few seconds. We're going to install Chrome. Okay, so once Chrome is installed, you would use Chrome to visit the website that's noted here to download your image. This is a very small image, so the scan doesn't take very long, and I'm mindful of that, right? So here's my Chrome. I'm going to go ahead and type in my website. Make sure that you type it exactly as shown. dftt.sourceforge.net test3, which is the directory where it stores our image, index.html. And so once you visit the site inside your virtual machine using Chrome browser, if you're using Edge browser, you have to allow the website or add it to the trusted site. Otherwise, it doesn't load the site. And I put some instruction for you to do that there. So once you are on the website here, right, inside my virtual machine, I already did the screenshot. So you're going to click the zip link here. Okay. So click the zip link. And once your download is completed, it's going to show up in your downloads folder. And it's going right now, so it's not completed. And once we have the download complete, then we can extract it by right-clicking it. So we basically obtain an image that was created from the website. And to do that, the easiest way is to use Chrome browser. You will find that a lot of the image websites that you can obtain from works best with other browser outside of Edge, unless you change your settings for privacy and security. Okay, so my download is complete and I now can close on my browser. Then the next part is to find the downloaded image, and I would need to extract it. So for step 6, that's where we're at now. So come back to the virtual machine. Here, I will go to my folder, my file explorer, which is the folder here. I would double click and then go to downloads. And I would right click the folder where it says 3KWSRCHNTFS. We would right click and then we would extract all. And click extract. So once it's extracted, it's going to show a normal folder without the zip symbol in your downloads folder. Then the next part is to open up the Autopsy app. Keep in mind that I already installed this for you. So if you do this on a different virtual machine or your own computer, you would need to find Autopsy. And you can find Autopsy online by just searching Autopsy download. Go to their website and you can find the appropriate version for your computer. It works with OS X, Linux, and Windows. Okay. So back to our virtual machine here. I already have my file, so I'm going to go ahead and open up Autopsy, and you can also click the icon where it says Autopsy right here. So you can double click the icon, which is the dog. And this is going to open up. Now, when you run forensic toolkits like Autopsy and Bulk Extractor, just if you're using a virtual machine, make sure that your virtual machine has adequate resources. Like we want to give it a decent amount of RAM. When you create your virtual machine, make sure it has enough storage, because some images are very large once you extract it, and it will take up your drive space. Okay. So here it tells you, you know, limit what store. You can just click OK. The nice thing about Autopsy is it does give you the interface instead of using command line, right? So when this pop up, you are going to allow access for the 64-bit Autopsy module. And then if it shows up again, you're going to allow access again. Okay. So here we are in Autopsy. You would start with clicking the new case button. So what that does is when you make a new case, it's going to create its own directory. And if you already have existing case, you would click open case. So we are going to put in our case information. We want to put the case number by practice. That's important. And I normally put a brief description in the title so that way I know what kind of investigation I'm doing. Let me minimize this back. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and type case 0 number 1 investigating Windows NTFS. Then this part is we are going to create a directory or a folder where we're going to store our artifacts and our case information, even though it's already going to default into the documents and so on. So we're going to go ahead and browse. And we're going to point to documents. And then on the right-hand side, you are going to click the red, the folder with the red symbol to create a folder. And we're going to call this case number 0001. And we're going to select that folder. So here is where we're going to make a folder where we're going to store our case information. And by practice, that's important so you can find things because you might have many cases. So we want to keep the case organized. Then we're going to go next. And then here, we are going to enter the details of the case. Hello. You're going to need a drive from the chair there. We're using the Windows virtual machine, the forensic one today. 0001 for the case number. Then for examiner, you want to put your full name. And if you want, you can fill out additional information. So realistically, this needs to be filled out. But for the lab's sake, if you don't want to fill it out, that's fine, right? And then we're going to click finish. So now it's going to build out the interface for this. It's going to open the application, the text index. And then after this, we are going to give it the source, which is our image, right? So you need to set up your folder to store your artifacts. And then you're going to link the image source to your application so we can do the analysis. Okay. So once you created your case information, it's gonna ask you this, right? So for step 16, it tells you that there's a select host window right here, which is what I see. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna keep the default where it says generate new host name based on the data source name. So we are going to use the same name as the data source name. So we're going to go next. Unless if you want a different name, you can specify that by giving it a name and the description information, right? Then for step 17, we are going to have our selection for our image. And it's going to default to the first option. So this is a disk image that you downloaded, or a virtual machine file. But in the case where if you confiscate hard drive or solid state drive, you would and install it on your computer, you would be able to do the local disk. So when you do like data recovery, sometimes that will be a local disk. And then if you are looking at different part of the drive, then you can also look at logical files to really find, like, mostly for file carving. Hi. You can grab one of the drive from the chair. We're using the Windows Forensic Virtual Machine for Lab 6. And then examining drive and or create image, right? You can also use this. So we're going to keep this selection. We're going to go next. And then now we're going to link our extracted image file to the software. So we're going to click browse, and recall that I had extracted it in my download folder. So I'm going to scroll up and go to my downloads. Hi. You're going to need a drive from the chair there. Okay, we're using the Windows Virtual Machine. And then open up the extracted folder, its subfolder, and the .dd file is what you need to link. So we're going to browse to the extracted folder and then open the subfolder and then select the .dd file. Click open. And then after that, we just finish step 18 and then 19. And then so for this, it's really important that we want to validate our actual file. So in your virtual machine, so for the MD5 hash here, we want to put in the hash key. And the hash key for this, I actually obtained for when, from the image website. So when you create your image, normally it would give you a hash value using the software. So that's the hash. So you want to make sure that there's integrity. There's no change in your image, right? So we're going to do a 389. We type that in. I know it's long. Okay, 4212 4E B23 C505 3FF 6596 97 60 6710. Now, if you have other hash value, then you would enter those there. Okay. So this part is to really indicate, because when it generates the report for you, it's going to say that this is the image, this is the hash value. And you can also use hash ID or hash checker to make sure that it's the same. So we would enter our MD5 hash, and then you're going to click next. Now, this part right here is also going to determine how long or short your scan would be, right? If you're doing a keyword search, you can simply select that. But if you're doing everything, you can leave everything selected. In some cases, we don't want to do everything. It's capable of doing picture analyzer and other area like Yara and so on. So this tool is really good for photo carving. So if you're examining an image that have photos, like a lot of the time smartphone is, later on you're going to see that when we're using the iPhone image and the Android image, this is very useful. Okay. So what you want is, and it also have Android analyzer here. So this toolkit is very friendly toward other type of system type of image. So what we're going to do is, for the configure ingest window, we're going to keep everything selected because it's a small image, but you can select the ones that you want to use. So these are all the tools that you can have in that toolkit, right? And you can deselect and select the ones that you need, and then we're going to close next. So it's going to pull the source file, and it's going to apply all the tools that you have selected. And then what we're going to do is we we are going to create a keyword list to examine, to find the proper result from our image. And so it's already been added to the database, and you're going to click finish. And this is going to load here. So your image that's linked, it's always going to show here. In the case that if you want to link additional image, you would repeat the same process. Okay? Like add data source here and then find the image file. Because in some system that's very large, you might have multiple images, like, you know, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. And then you would add individual images here and then be able to scan them. Okay, any question? Okay. So now I just finished step 23. I'm going to go ahead and start my keyword list. So keyword list, you would find it on the right-hand side or near the right side at the top. So you would click it. And you can select the type of list. So in the case if we're looking for specific information like credit card number, social security number, etc., then we can create the list and then set it to how it is. But it does come with some built-in lists. So now in the step, what it tells you is it's telling you that we are going to make a new list. So we're going to click the manage list and then make a new list. Okay. So manage list is located here. Once you click the keyword list, click this. And then you're going to make a new list by clicking new list. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a name so that way you can distinguish from one list to the next. So we're going to say case 001. And you can name it however that you want to reference it, but I normally like to name my word list based on the case. So that way I can differentiate. But if you create a general word list, right? Like for example, if I create like a word list that would look for a certain key term, then I can name it a little bit different. And then we're going to click OK. So once we have the new word list or the new keyword list created, we can add the keywords now. So you have to enter each of these entry, and I'm going to talk about these. So the keywords here, we are going to look for allocated section of the drive. So you can put in, so on your thing here, you're going to add a new keyword. Okay. And then if you want to paste it, you can. So let me scroll up a little bit so I can show you view. So we can do R-ALLOC and then press enter. And then you can do unallocated. So we're looking at a section of the drive that's allocated, and then the section of the drive that's unallocated. Keith, are you okay? Okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. And then we're gonna do FADS, right? So all of these reference the properties of the characteristic of the actual partition or the drive itself. So unallocated are space in the drive itself that's not assigned to any type of file system. So for example, like in your house, you might have a very big house, and then you would only section your house for 2 rooms, but you have additional space down the hall or in a different level that you haven't used. So those unused space are unallocated. It's not allocated to any rooms yet, right? The allocated ones are the ones that already been assigned to specific partition of the drive. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look through the FATs and also the RATs or the DATs. Okay. So these are going to be for the type of section of the drive that would be so we would have our DAT. So you're going to add all of these, the N allocated, the N unallocated, and then the M fragmented. So you can look at fragment section of the drive. And then slack space is where your delete file goes. So fragmented because your files are written in different section of the disk. So that means that there are fragments of it across your drive, right? Your disk don't write things consecutively. It would spread across in wherever that it can find available. So we want to look for everything there. Slack. And then N FATs. So once we're done, and here you can also select like different options. So I want exact match. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click OK and then OK again. OK here and then OK here. So what it does is it's going to find the exact match based on these. But you do have other options. And then we're going to click OK. So now we already have a keyword list and it adds it right here, you see? And the more that you would have here, the more correlation that you would be able to, for your software to be able to analyze. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come back here. We're going to click on the keyword list and this is going to pop up. You're going to select your keyword list. And then you're going to click search. So it's going to search against the image that you had selected as data source that you mounted earlier. So it's going to find, and keep in mind that this is a very small image, so it's fairly fast. Later on in this class, you are going to do a couple of labs that we're going to examine, like an iPhone of someone. It's going to take a little longer, right? Hours. Okay. It's just even an earlier iPhone, like an iPhone 6, which is what many versions ago, it would take at least 3 to 4 hours, depending on the data that they have on it too. So the amount of data and the drive size make a huge difference in the amount of time that you would wait for the scan. So at this point, what we have is we should have a result, right? It's fairly fast because I think this one is only like 512 megabytes. So it's like half of a gig. So the larger your storage, the longer it's going to take. So when you're here, you just finished step 30 and got your result, then you're going to take a screenshot. So you can screenshot this. So what it does here is it's giving you a view of the files that it found. We have some log files, we have some DAT files, right? A lot of the file system information. And if you scroll right, it's going to tell you the keyword preview, your location, the time that's modified, okay? The time that it was changed, change time, the access time. So when I open a file, it shows the access file. If I modify the property of the file, then it's going to show modified. So if I click save, it does three things, right? I open the file in order to edit it, right? So I access it. And then once I click save, it's going to update the modified and the change time. because it changed the state of the file and the content of the file itself. So whenever in your system, whenever that you open up your drive or plug in a USB, all of those things gets updated in a log like this. Okay, so what it's telling you here is, and then if I first create the file, that's the created time. That was when it was originated, right? And then it tells you the size. So the flags, so it uses these flags to really identify whether it's part of the section of the drive where that was assigned to a partition or linked to a partition or not, unallocated. Okay. And then the hashes. So when you know, the nice things about software like this is it's going to give you the report, but you can always go back here and find the specific information. Okay. For the MIME type, this ties back to email. So because sometimes we would find like email information or email files. Okay. Any question? All right. So I write down how many files that was found from the system. What was the first file modified and created? So you can take a look at the information here, like the log file is my first file. And then if you scroll right, you would see the modified time and the access time, the change time, and the created time. From top to bottom. Mm-hmm. Now, on the top right, it tells you how many files it found, so you don't have to sit there and count them all, right? It tells you 16 results. That's the amount of files that it found. Okay, so look at that. Some software, they would put it down here, but this one, you can see it there. Okay, any question? You guys already know how to create image from ProDiscover, right? Remember that this work with certain file extension. Every software has sometime that if it's able to use other type of file, make sure that you know, find out the type of file that it uses. So this one uses DD and it uses some of the other as listed in the document. Okay. Once we're here, there are two ways that you can generate the report. Once you have your artifacts, right? These are your results. You can click this. And if you have a hard time like controlling this, you can also go to tools at the top. And then you would go to generate report, which is here, middle. So what's going to do is going to take all of this information, it's going to put it into a report format where we can put it onto a document for investigation purposes or legal purposes. So what we're going to do is we are going to select the data source summary report. Then we're going to click next. And then we're going to keep the selected image and finish. So data source summary report. Now, if you want a certain type of report, you can select that here and then go next. This is the image that we're working with. So we can keep the same and then go finish. So it's going to extract all of this result information, useful information. It's going to put it onto the report. So pay attention to this because it tells you where your Excel spreadsheet is going to be. So this is why I put down that it's best that you use Excel, but if you don't have Excel, you can open it up in another type of platform. You can also go to your Google Docs and then, you know, upload this particular file and you can read it there too. Okay. All right. So answer the questions. oh, I forgot the next step. So after you generate your report, you're going to go here, and I modified the link a little bit. So we had put it under the case one folder in the documents. So in your virtual machine, close this. We finished with that. You are going to open up your File Explorer. Then you are going to go to PC, C drive, follow the file path, users, the user account that you're using. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to Documents, Case 001. Again, it's subfolder, so just keep on going. Now here, this is the autopsy file that it's referring to, right? So let me see. Sorry, go to Reports, and then the subfolder, Data Source Summary. So right here, yeah. Keep going until you get to the actual file. And then this is the file. So when this pop up, you're going to use more apps. And then if you have, you know, Excel, you should open it up with Excel. Since we don't, we're going to use WordPad. Not going to look too nice, but it's going to give you some text information there. See, WordPad doesn't convert. No, mine didn't convert correctly. Let me see. Yeah, on yours, it opened. Yeah, mine coding doesn't. Let me see if I can open it with. Let's see if it opens with Edge to see if it opens. Let me find a better application for this. So you can go to Microsoft Store and get Excel for free. It didn't let you use Excel?
And I try like going to the like Google website, same stuff.
It doesn't open?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Hold on, let me pause recording. So what we did was we signed into Outlook, right? And then I went to my OneDrive. I uploaded the file from the case one folder. I went through all the subfolders. So here's my OneDrive, right? You just click the plus sign and then you click file upload. And then you go to this PC, documents, case 01, investigating Windows, go to reports, case 01 again, data source summary, and then find the Excel file, and then click open. So it's this one. So once you upload it, you just click on it to open, and it would show this. So this makes a lot more sense if you use Excel to open it. It's so much nicer, right? Because it's really written for Excel spreadsheet. So it tells you that this is one image, unknown files to analyze. The size was about 8 megabytes for the image. Yeah, you scroll down, you're gonna see allocated files, unallocated files. These are the keyword search that we gave it earlier, right? The Slack, the directories. And then if you have other things, you can also check out the other tab. But overall for this drive, this is the overall report summary. So you can include this into your write-up for, you know. Okay. Any question? So for this part, once we open up the Excel spreadsheet, we would be able to get the information for our files. Just the easiest way is to log in on use Chrome inside the virtual machine, log on to Outlook, just like how you log on to your email account. And then click on OneDrive and upload it and then open it. Because Office 365 is including Outlook, so it's able to identify that it's an Excel file and have that open. And then after that, after you answer these questions, right, you can shut down your virtual machine and then simply answer the other two questions. What did you learn in this lab? And how can you use Autopsy for forensic investigation? So we learned how to use keyword search in this lab, right, in Autopsy. We also learned how to create a case and use Autopsy to examine the source image, and then use keyword search to analyze allocated and unallocated space on the drive and identify the files, you know, in Slack and allocated and unallocated space. We also could find files that were, when the files were created, modified, access. And Autopsy can be used in many different ways, right? It can be used to examine drive. It can be used to examine, to find files, or what we call file carving. It can also be used to recover files, or analyze image files. So all the feature that you saw earlier that is useful. It can also help you find IP addresses for systems and email information, browser information, and so on. So when you look at Autopsy, coming back here, so let me minimize this and coming back to our, if you come back here, you would see that, you know, even though we selected everything, right, you would see some file information and then your results. So it pulls all of this to put it onto what you see. The reason why that it's best in Excel is XLX, right? That's basically ultimately coming out of the comma separated value file, the CSV. And for data analysis, CSV files is friendly to other type of analysis software. So that's why they chose to go that route. And then you can also find like scores. So under the suspicious item, you can go here and then it shows some suspicious items. So when you analyze, you want to explore a little bit more here. And then, you know, if there are bad items, it would show that there. So here, these are some of the things that we want to look at. And then your report information is also linked there. Okay.
Where can we find the IP address?
You have to select the IP address keyword list, right? It comes with some of the default lists, but you can edit the list or create your own list. So any text-based information is also pretty good to find. So if you go here, you can see there's IP addresses. So it uses the regular expression, but ideally you also, so it's looking for like the dashes and the symbol. The reason why is the addresses, our system addresses uses this. But if you're looking for a specific set of IP addresses, it's better if you just create your own word list. Yeah, it comes with like website, so it's good for browser analysis. It's good for email because it's using the regular expression, all the symbols and so on. Like it's looking for the @ symbol and then the .com, etc.
So this one there wouldn't be, right? Well, there might be some.
Well, so we can try, like, you can select multiple word lists and then you can just click search. So now I'm generating additional, right? So the image, depending on your case and the image that you work with, you can use one or many word lists. In the future, we are gonna see that, you know, even if you don't select it, it's still gonna find some information with like websites and stuff like that. I went to my OneDrive, so yeah. Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
All right. So, any question? We're good. So this one's pretty easy. And then when we're done, right, you just close all your application. So that folder is there on that particular virtual machine already. So every time that you have a case, you can just add another folder to Autopsy. And remember that if you install Autopsy, you have to install Java. And normally it tells you that in the installation. So you just have the latest Java package.
Java for like
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like Java SE something. It has a minimum requirement, but you can have the newer version. So